How most people think about identity is entirely wrong. And having the wrong outlook on identity sets people up to be in a really difficult predicament, where who they present to the world is in conflict with who they actually are. Psychologists have been talking about this for ages. Carl Jung called this the persona versus the shadow. Winnicott called it true self versus false self. And Carl Rogers called it the real self versus the ideal self. Now, the point is, this is an old struggle that people have been dealing with forever. In my last video, I introduced you to my concept of a denial-based personal identity versus an acceptance-based personal identity. You should watch that video first if you haven't seen it. We looked at two examples, Justin and Kayla, who both had denial-based personal identities. And we ended with an important question. How can someone embrace an acceptance-based personal identity, and specifically in the realm of gender? These are the questions we're going to explore and answer today. Welcome to The Metaphor of Gender. I'm Sasha, a therapist, and this channel is for curious people who prefer deep thinking over dogma. We explore identity, meaning, and how to live life well. Let's start with an explanation of acceptance-based personal identity in general. I'm actually going to share an example to illustrate this, and then we'll come back and apply the concept to gender. I'd like you to meet Ashlyn. Ashlyn is a recovering perfectionist who is leaning more into an acceptance-based personal identity. Let me tell you what I mean. Ashlyn is a student, and she really cares about her grades. The problem is that Ashlyn used to beat herself up every single time she missed a deadline, fell a little behind, or didn't perform as well as she wanted on an exam or quiz. She's gotten a few B's and even a C recently, and this had completely crushed her image of herself. At the time, her internal dialogue used to sound something like this. Why is this so hard for me? It should be much easier. I'm such a failure and I don't deserve to be thought of as intelligent. As a smart kid, I'm supposed to get straight A's on everything. But as Ashlyn has worked on her acceptance-based personal identity, she started shifting her mindset around setbacks and missed assignments. She's working on her internal dialogue, which these days sounds a lot more like this. I care a lot about school, and that's why I get anxious about deadlines and assignments. But it's okay to fall short at times. I'm doing my best and putting in my best effort. I'm going to keep working on it and striving for improvement, not perfection. Now, can you see the difference? Ashlyn's acceptance-based personal identity includes being someone who cares a lot about school. Now, obviously this is true, so it's based in reality. And she won't have to experience that painful incongruence between her real self and her imagined self, because her real self sometimes does get B's, but tries really hard, while her fantasy imagined self from before had to be perfect and get straight A's all the time. Ouch, that's just not sustainable because it's based in denial about what's true. Okay. So how might this apply to gender? Let's meet one more friend for today, Jessie. Jessie is a 25-year-old non-binary graduate student who's been exploring a fluid gender identity since the age of about 18. Now, Jessie is a biological male who enjoys a variety of presentations in terms of clothing, hairstyles, and self-expression, and Jessie uses he, they, and sometimes she, they pronouns. So what makes Jessie's identity an acceptance-based personal identity? Well, first of all, Jessie embraces the idea of non-binary and fluid gender in a light and symbolic way. Conceptually, being gender fluid signifies the creativity and flexibility that Jessie feels on the inside. But Jessie's ability to hold this lightly means they don't expect everyone else to hold the exact same views about identity or gender. For example, Jessie really loves their grandparents and has a very close relationship with family members across multiple generations. Jessie's grandparents love him dearly, but they simply don't hold the same views about the meaning of things like pronouns or the idea that gender could be fluid in the first place. Being able to take the perspective of others, Jessie can evaluate whether someone's actions or words are hateful. And Grandma and Grandpa's certainly are not. Jessie really values love and relationships and appreciates that their grandparents speak authentically and naturally when they all spend time together. The way Jessie thinks about it, after all, pronouns only make up about 0.05% of a whole conversation, so it's not a huge deal. As you can see, Jessie's identity works in the real world, in his real life, and in his real relationships. He doesn't have to cut people off or reject anyone who sees the world differently. Meanwhile, with other queer friends or people within the community, Jessie really enjoys when people use their preferred pronouns. Remember how our identities are contextual and may change in different settings with different people and even over time. Well, Jessie's flexibility and understanding of social context here is a perfect example of this. Now, another way that Jessie is in a place of acceptance is related to his male physiology. Rather than trying to hide himself or pretend to literally be someone else or wishing to have a completely different body, Jessie practices compassion towards themselves. They also understand that others may perceive him as a male and as a man, but Jessie knows that they hold both masculine and feminine qualities. And Jessie is confident about who he is. And so he doesn't need others to validate or confirm any of this for him. So what do you think of these examples? We're just scratching the surface here today. And with my whole introduction series from this week, there are so many things I can't wait to dig into with you, like how to be creative and flexible with an identity that could shift over time, or the role that stereotypes and gender norms play into all of this, and of course what it feels like to have a truly authentic personal identity. And look, we have plenty of time to explore all of this together. We'll even discuss how medical interventions and transition could fit into an acceptance-based personal identity. And let's be honest, the reason anyone would spend so much energy curating, experimenting, and seeking clarity about their identity in the first place is because they hope it will make them happy. And who doesn't want to be happy? But something therapists, researchers, philosophers, and scientists know about happiness is a little counterintuitive. The things that make human beings happy, no matter who they are quite simple, but can be really hard to achieve. For most of us, it takes a concerted and conscious effort to move towards a happy and contented life. Things like relationships, a sense of purpose and meaning, and habits that accumulate over time that get us where we want to go, well, those things take a lot of effort. So in addition to exploring this concept of identity, as we did today, I hope you'll join me as we continue to talk about well-being, happiness, and purpose. Okay, that's it for today. Keeping one foot in reality and one in possibility. I'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. That really helps me to keep this channel going. And please tell me your thoughts below. And look, if you're wondering, why is gender a metaphor? Then click here to watch this video. Thanks and see you next time. This information is meant for educational purposes only, and not as a substitute for mental health services.